you got any final thoughts for the show?
Make jukes, not war.
Can we edit that out?
Nope. I had my game face on.
I think we can.
Hello and welcome to two English classics known as Range Rovers. These are both Series 1 Range Rovers, and we're going to see which one is the best and how different they are comparing to the two Mattel brands, Matchbox on the right and Hot Wheels on the left. And we'll see how different they are and which one's my favourite. Now I'm going to give a hint. It's definitely the better one. But which one is the better one? Let's have a look at it and see which one is definitely the best. Now, to anyone who hasn't ever watched one of these manufacturer comparison brand sort of videos before, that intro is probably extremely confusing. Now, today what I'm going to be doing is comparing both the Hot Wheels and the Matchbox brand and really deciding which one's my favourite out of the two. Now, there is obviously very, very big difference in the two. Now, this one is very much of a consumer sort of brand. It's very much a consumer sort of level of how the cast would have been, and this is very much more of a highly tuned off-roading beast, as you could say. But either way, they're both true to how Range Rovers are used, how they're restored, and how they are really driven. They aren't very common, but they are definitely very faithful to the actual cast themselves, or the actual car themselves. So I'm going to describe which one's my favourite, what I don't like and what I do like about both of them, and really whether I should say you should pick up the cast or not. So I should probably get into it right now. Now, starting on the front end, we can see there is major difference in the two, aside from the fact that they are both, as I'm very happy to say, relatively the same size and very, very, very similar scales, if not the exact same one. So I'm extremely happy to say that. But we do have very different subtle details that are present on both. Now, on the front of the Range Rover of the Matchbox here, the yellow one, you can see there is a UK space for a UK license plate there, which is actually, I find it quite cool. Sort of a rectangle shape with the straight bar bumper, which is true and faithful to how they actually were, with the several slat grille going across there, which is horizontal, with the two circular headlights and the indicators on both sides. Whereas on the Hot Wheels, we see the same bumper, but the fog lights are here present, and the same headlights and indicators there as well. The big difference is really, as you can see on the front end, the wing mirrors here are on the actual wings where they used to be. Of course, you can see the cast, they are actually casted in. They aren't metal, they aren't plastic or anything like that. They are genuinely casted in. Of course, you can hear part of the movable and openable engine bay, which I think looks very nice. If I just open that up. These have a Rover V8 in them, so they are very reliable and reasonably powerful when you tune them, as this one has been. Now, of course, in terms of detail and everything, the Matchbox is of course going to win, as the Matchbox is generally a premium-ish brand. It's halfway between premium and not, as this is a moving part, so you'd expect a bit more detail with the money. Of course, in the seat, on the side, you can see they are relatively the same spec. They are two-door Range Rovers, which are worth big money now. But here we see the casted wing mirrors and the Hot Wheels are actually on the door this time, not on the wing like you see on the Matchbox. It's been lifted, of course. There is a mud flap here, which I think is very nice. I love the livery. This is definitely my favourite release this has had so far. I love the fact that the side lamp is definitely there. And of course, they have paved over the rear window that used to be there, but it is no longer, which I find quite cool. And they've plastered it full of a bunch of sponsors like Castrol, ABAC and Michelin. Continuing on to the Matchbox, we see of course the shut lines as the moving parts bonnet really presents, which is a bit of an issue if you want realism, but I personally really like it because you get a sort of opening feature. The wheels are definitely a lot better, compared to the Hot Wheels, as they are a lot more realistic. The badging is definitely detailed there, as well as the door having the same sort of mirror / side window sort of thing there. But in this case, we do have the proper window here, seeing into the interior, which you can see the rear seats and the rear sort of spare wheel there present as well, which I really like that detail. I really like when Matchbox puts things in the boots and the rear ends of their casts. I think it was really good. The Matchbox, as I should probably mention right now, does come with two variations, left-hand drive and right-hand drive, so look out for both of them, as I think the right-hand drive is a bit more cooler. I also do have a right-hand drive, as you can see, which I think is pretty cool. onto the rear ends now, we can really see quite a bit of difference in terms of detail wise, where I do really commend the Hot Wheels one on the levels of detail on this, with it being a mainline. Of course you can see Range Rover sort of badging going across there, the Land Rover badge, which has sort of been messed up, but it's still there, and the lights are still really well done, as well as the license plate, which I really commend them for. The bumper, however, is slightly, as you can see, pivoted like that on a slant. I'm not sure if that's how it's meant to be, but I've tried pushing it up multiple times and it doesn't like to go up there, so it stays, which I quite like. It makes it so it's sort of been battered and worn. The tinted glass looks quite nice. You can't see anything in there, but there is a spare wheel, which you can see in person. You can't see on camera as it's a bit too dark. But on the moving parts Matchbox, you can see more of that sort of window detail in there. All around, you can see into the boot. It just looks all really nice, really cool. The one thing where Hot Wheels really puts the Matchbox to shame, however, is the lack of license plate. I really do like the fact that this is Range Rover Classic. I think the Matchbox should have done something very similar, if not the same. However though, Land Rover, or the Range Rover badge, is detailed far better on the Matchbox than it is onto the Hot Wheels, which is relatively standard, as Matchbox tend to do details a lot better. So overall, which is better? Now I would like to say, in terms of negative points, there is some. The Hot Wheels one, I mean, it's a bit too thin, except for that proportions are very good, as you can see. It's slightly too thin and the wheels stick out a bit too much, but that's me being very picky. One thing I have noticed very prevalent in the moving parts sort of set that Matchbox releases is when you have an open bonnet or a door, they aren't necessarily careful on their shut lines. So you see on various points like this and this, where the hinges meet the actual sort of firewall bit of the body, they scrape the paint off, which I think is quite an unnecessary and quite a sort of sad thing to see, as for the quality and the money you'd expect slightly more. Everything else, that's the only negative thing I have about that. I think everything else is fantastic, and I love the fact there is multiple variations. Personally, I think it's one of the best casts made this year, if not the best. We'll have to see. Especially for moving parts, I think it's definitely the best, but I think the BMW E91 Touring definitely pips it at that post. But that's been it. The 2021 Land Rover / Range Rover versus, released by Hot Wheels, versus the Matchbox 2022 released moving parts. Which is your favourite? I know which one mine. I'd say it's definitely the moving parts. In terms of sort of insane ludicrousness, I'd definitely say it's that one. So I'm sort of pipped at the post between which one I like and which one I dislike. I really like both of them, so in the comments please help me out. Which one is your favourite and which one is not? That's about it. So we have to take some photos now and stay juke'ing for the final time this week until we see you next week. Stay safe everyone, have fun of course. Stay juke'ing.